In this video, we're going to be talking about the reasons why you need to use a design system. Normally, when people design their websites, they go in and enter values manually. For example, here I have a bunch of text. So in this case, this is a heading. So you can see it's set to heading 1. So what normally happens here is people go in and set the size. So let's say you go in and say, I want my heading 1 to be 46. So you do that. And for the tablet, you'd also want to go in and set the size. So currently it's set to 36. So you could say, okay, you know what? This time I want, let's say 40, right? And then for this phone screen, you can say, I will need, say, 32. Now, these values that I've been adding, they do not follow a scale, because in design, we're supposed to be following a spacing scale. And even the numbers that we use over here, the sizes and everything, have to follow a pattern. So if we don't use this pattern, you're going to have a website which is not consistent. So if you're using a design system, things change. So let's get rid of this one here. So what would happen is you'd come over here and then you set your size. So for example, in this case, heading 1, you'd go in and set it up over here like that. Okay. So the question now is, where is heading 1, the size and everything coming from? Well, it's coming from what are known as variables. So all your variables are first defined over here, and this is what makes this a design system. So you can see H1 is here and the values are clamp. So why clamp? Well, clamp takes away the stress of guessing what size it needs to be and what size it needs to be on whatever device it is. So for example, I've entered my size over here and it's a preset. I've also done the same thing with heading 2 over here. And I've also done the same thing with heading 3. So now, in fact, let's go ahead and define this to heading 3. There we go. So now when we go to this tab, you can see the size is getting smaller without me actually going in and changing anything. So this makes your website very, very responsive without the need of going in over here and entering values manually. And also, just so you know, if you were to go in and enter pixel values or REMs or EMs, what happens is your website will not be accessible and it will fail the accessibility test. And this is now a requirement in Europe. I'm not sure how it is in the Americas, but in Europe, it is a requirement. It's also good for people to be able to go in and zoom into text and zoom out for accessibility. So your website is definitely going to fail. So that is why you need a design system that controls all these sizes. Okay, let's move on to the other reason why it's important to have a design system. So, hey, by the way, before I go there, I just want to show you something quickly. There's also other sizes here that you can play around with. So for example, maybe you want a display heading. You can have a display heading nice and big like that. Or if you want it very, very big, you know, you can have it as big as that. So these are all other examples of how you can set up your text as you're designing. Of course, the width, the row here should not be like that. It needs to be perhaps maybe something that looks like that so that the text fits really, really well. All right, so moving on. The other reason why you may need to use, or you really need to use a design system, is in situations where you get a website that is not following a design system. So in this case, we have this page here. So when we take a look at this text here, we know, or rather I know, that this is not the right size because it has pixel values. So if I come over here, I can see there it's 110 pixels. If I go to the smaller screen, it is 40 pixels. So that is a problem. Now look at the change. It's really dramatic. Okay, now that's not what we want when we design websites. So when you use a scale or a system, what happens now is all you need to do is to go in. First of all, you need to reset any sizes that are added over here. So I'm going to come over here to reset attributes, reset presets. Okay, so you can see the presets are gone. So I can go in manually now and set this to the size that I want. So let's say this is heading 1 and that's what I want. That's what I would do. And let's say I want to set it to, let's say, display small. I can set it like that without worrying how this is going to appear on a different screen. So you can see here, my text does not have a dramatic shift. Everything fits very well. And this one here is way too small. There is less consistency there. So it could be that you may get a website from a client that you want to take on, and you want to make it consistent and easier to manage. So this is where you would apply a design system. Again, we can see all the text here. I can go in, change this. In fact, first of all, you need to go in and reset everything. It's quite a bit of a job. I mean, to go in and reset all these values. So now that I've reset that, I can go in and add my own heading now. Okay, do you see that? So this is responsive. Now this also applies to my width. So for example here, I can change my width for my headings. I can change my width for my fonts and so on. Okay, so that's the second reason, to make sure that a website is following a design system. You'd go in and make those changes. Now look, there's a subheading there. Okay, so again, I would go in and remove that by right clicking and resetting. Okay, now this process is very important to do because it just makes sure that next time you start working on your website, it's going to be consistent. Now this here is a heading, so you can change this to whatever heading size it is. Okay, so maybe perhaps you want to set it to heading 4. The other reason why you need a design system when designing websites in 2026 is spacing. We can see here the spacing between these two elements here is way too much. There is no consistency in spacing. So what you need to do is to go in and make sure you add the proper spacing. So I'm going to go in here, go to my layout, and you can see it's set to block. Ideally, we want to set it to flex. Okay. So once you've done that, you'd come over here, set the gap to 0. Now we notice that nothing has happened. So we need to go in and remove all these values. Again, here you see we have this row 1500 wide. We get rid of that. Okay. And then this is where you want to go in and set your spacing. So for example, here we have all the margins and we have all the padding. So I can go in and say margin top like that. In fact, let's just change this. Okay. So we can go in and set our margin top. We can set our padding and so on. Now, all these sizes here are also based on clamp, which means when the screen size gets smaller, everything is going to fit in place properly. Okay, now I can see this is paragraph text. Okay, again, this is the wrong size. So I would need to go in here and set this to body text base. And you can see now this is the correct size. Let's move on to the next reason why you would need to use a design system. So here you can see we have this darker version of this hero area. Chances are you may want to change this to a different style, which is perhaps maybe even a lighter version. So let's use our canvas here. So I'm going to duplicate the canvas and oops, what did I do here? Okay. So let's say I want to change this into the light version. Now I want you to notice how fast this is going to be. So I'm going to go in here and go to my background. So I'm going to go to content, and then over here on the background, I can either go and say background light, or I can go in and remove this and then choose the color from here. So I can go perhaps with this, say gray 50. Okay. Now it is easier for me to go in and start changing the text. So for example, on the heading there, I can just remove this heading light, turn it to, okay, automatically it's gone dark. And then here for the text as well, it's set to text light, remove that. Now, do you see how fast that was? Over here, I can change my label from light to say primary, okay? Or I can go in and set this to just a normal and then remove the primary. Okay, so quickly I'm able to go in and change and make quite a few changes, and then I can save this. So now I have two versions here in my canvas. I have the light version here and I have the dark version. So there we go. I have the dark here, I have the light, and I was able to achieve this really, really fast. So this gives you an advantage if you're working in a design agency, because everyone is going to know how these colors will change. So for example, here you can go in and specify the section. So for example, here, let's say we want medium. if anyone is supposed to come here and take a look at how this was constructed, you can quickly go in and take a look at all the assigned presets. It's very, very easy to do that. The next thing that I want to talk about is colors. Now, colors play a massive role in design. So if we take a look here, we have a quick design here, which has colors from our color palette. So let's say you're working on a program, on a website, and the client says, you know what, we need to rebrand. Now, I use a website called Coolest. So if we were to rebrand our complete website and you went in and added these colors manually, you're going to have a massive problem. Ideally, you want to be able to go in and add your colors in one place and your whole website updates. Okay, so let's look for interesting colors here. So let's try and use this one here for our secondary color. So I'm going to copy this hexadecimal value. Okay, now I want you to see what happens when I add my secondary color. Now this is my secondary color here. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to my variable manager, go to my colors, and then over here, I'm going to go in and paste my color like that. So you can see my button here has updated. Now what is going to be interesting is to see how things change over here. So I'm going to go back again. I'm going to lock this so that the color that I find needs to work well with this main color here. Okay, so I'm just going to make this a little bit darker. Okay, so let's go with this one here as our color. In fact, you know what? That doesn't look nice anyway. So let's just cycle through and choose a brand color here. Should we go with this one? Anyway, it's too close to what we had. So let's go with something really bright like this. So I'm just going to go in here and tweak it a little bit. Perhaps maybe go with something like, let's go with this. Okay. So I'm going to copy that. And then back over here, we're going to go in and set our primary color. Now take a look at what happens to that button there, this one here, and the background here. So everywhere where that color was used, it is going to update. You see that? And you may have not noticed, but over here we have all the shades also updated. So at any given point, if I need to use a darker shade of this, for example, I can just quickly come over here and choose, let's say, primary 600. And you can see I have consistency in my transparency and in my complete design. So this makes it very, very easy for you to do a quick rebrand. Now I didn't save that. That is why it went. But if you wanted that to stay on, you would go in and make sure you do, you save. So let's go back to our primary here. I'm going to paste it, hit enter, and then let's just change a few things here. Let's go with, let's say primary 700. So now I'm going to say save and apply changes. Okay, so now it's been applied. So as you can see, things have changed, and this is how you quickly rebrand your website. But this only works if you use a design system whereby you are not entering the colors manually. So if we take a look here, you can see this is where all our colors are. You only need to change it once, and once you change it, it applies across the whole website. That is the power of using a design system. So the question is, how do you create a design system? Well, there are several places that you can go and set your sizes. There's color scales. So if you search for, let's say, clamp or font clamp, there's so many places you can go to get this font clamp calculator. For example, we have this one right here. This is a font clamp calculator. You go in, enter your values here, and then this is the clamp size that you get. Okay, so it's very, very easy to use. And then once you collect all these, you enter them into your variables, and this is how they get applied across the whole website. Thankfully, I have a product called Crafter Pro. It has pretty much everything that you need in a design system. So at the moment, I have a lifetime offer. It's ending in 22 hours. Okay, so Crafter Pro, I've done a complete video here. But as you can see, these are things that you're going to have a problem with if you start designing with Divi from scratch. So you're going to have spacing breaks, your modules won't scale, typography looks off, the dark mode is a disaster, your tablet and mobile views need endless fixing. Okay. And here you can see you never have to adjust fonts again. This is what I mentioned. And then over here, you can see we have a color system, a proper color system, even the grayscale. Now, I did not speak about those, but the grayscale is there as well. Now, further down here, we have your 8-point grid system. Further down here, this workflow is called a preset-based workflow. This will save you a lot of time. Now, what I also didn't mention in this design system is all the default modules that come in with elegant themes are not ready to go live. You have to go in and adjust the sizes. Well, the design system has already done that for you. So you can see this is the default Divi one, and then this one here is the one that has the right sizes, and these are all clamp based, which means you don't have to go in and adjust any sizes. There's also a guide on how to use these presets, how to use fluid typography, how to use semantic colors, and so on. So there's a proper guide for those of you that want to go into UI design. There's also a grid system. Here is a side-by-side comparison between Divi 5 and Crafter Pro. So as you can see, this is way more superior because it has a full fluid camp typography system, whereas here there's no system. The spacing, here there's a fluid spacing scale, 8-point style, and then over here there isn't, and so on. So there's a lot here that we have, which is very, very important. And we also have our FAQs here in case you have some questions before you purchase it. So the question now is, how much is this? Well, the price is $197, and this $197 is at the moment the lifetime license. Now, once this runs out in 22 hours, it's going to go down to it's going to go up to 297 for the lifetime, and then the 197 is going to be a yearly one. Okay, so make sure you grab that lifetime license at a really massive deal. And also you get a lot of support. If you head over to diviuniversity.com, as soon as you sign up, you are going to get access to the community. So as you can see here, we have a community which has quite a lot of engagement. We have so many people over here in the community, and you get a dedicated space. So over here, if you purchase Crafter Pro, you're going to be a part of 1,016 members. All these members here are members that have access to Crafter Pro and have purchased Crafter Pro. So here is where we'll be designing, and talking about the proper way things need to be designed in Divi 5. So go ahead, check it out. The link to that is in the video description below. If you have any questions, please let me know and I'll do my best to help you out. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.